Welcome to the webinar hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency in Energy for All Building Efficiency Accelerator, which will focus on tools for building energy efficiency. And we are pleased that more than 250 participants have registered for this webinar, and they are joining us right now. My name is Ksenia Petrichenko, and I'm a researcher at Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, or C2E2. C2E2 conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as energy efficiency hub for Sustainable Energy for All initiative. I would like to briefly introduce you to our speakers today. We have Debbie Weil and Nate Aiden from World Resource Institute, who are supporting Building Efficiency Accelerator, Lucy Price from ECLAY, Zoe Springings and Francis Downey from C40, and Omid Zaberi from International Finance Corporation. A few words on our agenda. We will start with an overview of Building Efficiency Accelerator and its work in cities given by Debbie. And then Nate will give a brief introduction on the work C2E2 and WRI have been doing on analyzing available tools on energy efficiency in buildings. And we will have a number of case studies on analytical tools today. Lucy will present the opportunities of ECLAY Solutions Gateway. Zoe and Francis will share the insights from C40 Good Practice Guides. And Omid will talk about IFC's AGE tool and how it can be used by cities. We will conclude with questions and answer session, so please feel free to post your question anytime during the webinar using your question function. You can also indicate which speaker you would like to send this question to, but we prefer to address the questions at the end of the webinar for time management purposes. So thank you very much, and I would like to draw your attention that this is the third webinar on tools conducted by Building Efficiency Accelerator. You can find more information about previous webinars as well as other thematic webinars on C2E2 Knowledge Management System by following the link on this slide. And slides and recording of this webinar will be available for you and other participants who didn't join today through our knowledge management system. You will receive the link. So thank you very much, and with this brief introduction I would like to give the floor to Debbie to give overview of Building Efficiency Accelerator.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Debbie, we can hear you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Sorry about that. I had a brief moment of disconnecting from the internet at a very poor time. So anyway, thank you everyone so much for joining this webinar. My name is Debbie Weil, and I am with the World Resources Institute. And I will provide a brief introduction on the Building Efficiency Accelerator and some ways in which how it relates to this webinar on resources for policy and project implementation, where we will, as Ksenia mentioned, be looking at specific case studies for tools that can help cities implement building efficiency projects. The Building Efficiency Accelerator is a part of the UN Sustainable Energy for All initiative, which was launched by the UN Secretary General in 2011 around one main goal of achieving sustainable energy for all by 2030. There are three objectives under the SE for All platform, which are universal energy access, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. And the accelerators touch on each of these, but really are focused on doubling the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency by 2030. So the Accelerator platform is essentially the implementation arm of this energy efficiency goal by 2030. As you can see here, there are a number of energy efficiency accelerators that focus on different aspects of energy use in countries and in cities. There are some that are already underway and a few that are still under development. And we'll be focusing today on the buildings sector, which is where the Buildings Efficiency Accelerator, which is what the Building Efficiency Accelerator covers, on promoting sustainable building policies and practices worldwide. There are, of course, overlaps between the Buildings Accelerator and some of these others, but we'll be focusing just on buildings today. The Building Efficiency Accelerator partnership is focused around helping subnational jurisdictions take action on building efficiency. So we focus primarily on cities and also some states or provinces to help them accelerate their actions on building efficiency. Currently we have 23 jurisdictions partnering with the Accelerator from all over the world. You can see those 23 cities and states here. And we have some from really globally. We have Central and Eastern Europe, South and Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America, Middle East. So really broad global coverage, and we expect to have additional cities and states join in the coming weeks. In addition, in order to help those subnational jurisdictions accelerate their efficiency, we act through a partnership of public, private, and nonprofit actors, and this is the way that all of the accelerators are set up to act. We have over 36 service providers, nonprofit NGOs, and associations providing assistance to the cities and states that are involved to help them accelerate their actions. These organizational partners are really critical to helping scale up action on building efficiency around the world and helping cities learn how to accelerate the actions that they want to take. And many of these partners are also presenting on this webinar. So thank you all very much for joining, and we really look forward to hearing more about the specific tools that you'll be talking about. So a little bit of background on why building efficiency is important. We talk about this in three main ways. That buildings have a very large impact on both how we use energy and on greenhouse gas emissions. They also have a huge potential for reducing energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. And they have very long-lasting implications because buildings can last for 50 years or more, and so there's a high risk of locking in high costs, high emissions, and poor services for urban populations. In addition, there are many benefits, of course, to improving the efficiency of buildings, economic, social, and environmental. So that's why it's important. And then we get to the question of how do we accelerate action. So the theory of action behind the Building Efficiency Accelerator is that the barriers that cities face are not primarily technical and economic barriers, but rather institutional and capacity barriers. So through this accelerator, we are bringing in different actors that can bring that capacity to assist at the city and the state level and bridge the gap in efficiency investments. The overarching commitment that cities sign up for when they join the Building Efficiency Accelerator is to double the rate of building energy efficiency by 2030 in their jurisdiction. And they do this through three commitments. They will implement one enabling policy. They will implement one demonstration project in something that is visible to their community. And they will track and communicate their progress. They'll create a baseline, report their annual progress, and share their experiences with other governments. And in order to do this, the BEA, the Building Efficiency Accelerator, provides a number of services to support cities and states. The first one is on prioritization, so we'll help cities define and prioritize what their policies and projects might be. The second, which we'll talk about today, is on tools, expertise, and solutions. So helping cities understand how to actually go about both prioritizing and implementing these policies and projects. And then helping connect city projects to funding and capital and helping them create a project that is conducive to that. And finally, and importantly, international recognition and collaboration. So helping cities learn from their peers, get global recognition in forums for actions they've taken, inspiring other cities and learning from each other. So with that introduction, I will pass this to Nate, who will give an overview of tools for energy efficiency in buildings.
Thank you, Debbie. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Nate Aiden and I'm from the World Resources Institute as well. And I'm just going to be giving an overview of some of the work that Ksenia and I have done on tools for tracking building energy efficiency implementation. To back up for just a moment here, the big picture is that we're aiming for low carbon cities, and we're really focusing on city energy efficiency implementation for the rules that for the reasons that Debbie had mentioned earlier. One way to look at this is that tools are at the nexus of policy goals and the bottom-up data that are becoming increasingly available from buildings to try to look at how cities are performing and what policy what policy goals are most relevant for cities at different stages in their building energy efficiency development. Some of the options for tracking building energy efficiency performance are listed here on the right. At the aggregate level, it can be citywide energy use or emissions. Building energy intensity is a common one in terms of energy or emissions per square meter. Insulation factors is a more building-specific variable that's sometimes tracked. Number of certified buildings, whether it's LEED in the US or other certification programs. CDM methods. There's increasing interest in net zero buildings. For example, in California, they've stated that buildings need to be net zero that are built after, I believe, 2020. And then just actual anecdotal policy demonstration projects are another thing that are tracked. So this is sort of the big qualitative picture here. In terms of the work that Ksenia and I have done, this is just a snapshot of some of the freely available tools that we've looked at, and you can see that we've categorized them depending on their approach, scope, and we've broken out building development cycle into 5 stages that I'll discuss subsequently. What I'll mention here is that our general aim is to analyze the publicly available tools and resources in order to assist local policymakers in accelerating building energy efficiency. The results of our analysis are being presented. So WRI recently published this Accelerating Building Efficiency report last month, and C2E2 and WRI are planning to describe some of the work that I'm talking about today in a working paper. So generally, as I mentioned, we break building efficiency into a 5-stage policy cycle: scoping, identification, design, implementation, and evaluation and reporting. And we look at the tools in terms of project tools and policy tools. As Ksenia mentioned, we had 2 earlier webinars. So the first one was last November, and it described some of the scoping and identification of option tools. And the way that we've broken this out is through a decision tree that that identifies particular publicly available tools and resources for given situations. So the information on these initial stages is available through our webinar, and you can find these through various websites. The second webinar described policy design, and that was in March, as Ksenia mentioned. This webinar is focused on implementation, particularly for new buildings and retrofit buildings, and we again break it into projects versus policies. And so today we're going to hear from our colleagues from ICLE, C40, and IFC regarding implementation tracking tools for cities. Some of the information that I just described is also available in the report that I mentioned, and also, as I mentioned, we are planning to publish this in a working paper subsequently. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton to Lucy Price from ICLE to describe their work in this area.
Thanks very much, Nate. All right, great. Yeah, thanks and good afternoon. I'm Lucy Price. I'm a project officer with the Low Carbon Cities team at the ICLE World Secretariat, and I'm also leading the World Secretariat's coordination as a partner of the Building Efficiency Accelerator. So today I'm pleased to provide an introduction to ICLE and our low carbon support, guidance, and tools for BEA members. And in particular, I'll be introducing you to the Solutions Gateway tool via a brief overview of its features, including the pool of experts, the finance decision-making tool, and then we'll discuss next steps for the Solutions Gateway and how you can join as a local government contributor or partner. So if you're not already familiar with ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability, ICLE was established in 1990 in New York for cities, by cities, and today serves as the world's leading network of over 1,000 cities, towns, and metropolises in 86 countries committed to building a sustainable future. And we're an international organization with 18 offices worldwide, and we offer a range of multidisciplinary climate mitigation and adaptation support. And so as a thematic network, we support local governments to accelerate sustainability via political processes. For example, as the focal point for the local government and municipal authorities constituency at the UNFCCC, as well as to build robust technical systems via guidance, tools, peer learning, and exchange. So energy efficient building is a cornerstone of the low carbon city, which is one of our core agendas at ICLE. And we're really pleased to serve as a partner to the UN C4All Building Efficiency Accelerator and to support local governments and key stakeholders transition towards carbon neutrality, urban resilience, and energy security. So here at the Low Carbon Cities team at the World Secretariat, we offer a range of process guidance, such as ICLE's Green Climate Cities program, standardized accounting protocols, such as the Global Protocol for Community-Scale Greenhouse Gas Emission Inventories, the GPC, also in partnership with the WRI and C40. We also offer a leading international reporting platform for local governments, the Carbon Climate Registry, to measure and track climate change mitigation and adaptation, report actions, and demonstrate your leadership as a local government, along with implementation support, such as the Solutions Gateway. So I'll only be speaking about the Solutions Gateway today. However, all of these tools benefit you as a BEA local government. They're all free, so feel free to explore. Now, what is the Solutions Gateway? The Solutions Gateway is an easy-to-use online platform for local governments, both political and technical staff, and it provides guidance on low-emission development options. So it's also important to highlight that this platform is open to all local governments, regardless of ICLE membership, and it's free. So here's the URL. I invite you to visit that on your computers right now or after this webinar. And before diving into the Solutions Gateway features, sorry, I'd just like to share a brief bit about its history. So the Solutions Gateway was developed under the Promoting Low-Emission Urban Development Strategies in Emerging Economy Countries, Urban-LEDs project, which was funded by the European Union and jointly implemented by ICLE and UN Habitat. And so the main objective here was which the project just concluded in March 2016, was to enhance the transition to low-emission urban development in cities in Brazil, India, Indonesia, and South Africa. And so here you have an overview of our 37 urban LEDs model and satellite cities, along with European project cities, and all of these cities were the pioneering Solutions Gateway users. So they've helped to develop, pilot, and roll out the Solutions Gateway over the past years. So the Solutions Gateway went live in 2014 and was available only to urban-led cities, and then was publicly rolled out at the ICLEI World Congress in April 2015 in Seoul. So why is the Solutions Gateway necessary? Well, it's widely recognized that local governments have a crucial role to play in delivering low-emission development. But very often local governments face constraints in terms of time and staff availability, including sometimes lacking in-house skills that are needed to assess policies, priorities, institutionalize, and implement low-emission development. And so the Solutions Gateway was developed with this in mind, to build local capacity with tailor-made support for local governments based on proven practices. Most importantly, aligned with local governments' usual roles and mandates. So each solution, which has been developed by experts and peer-reviewed before going online, ensures very high-quality content. It also provides several practice-oriented resources, including a pool of experts and a finance decision-making tool. And it offers an integrated approach to help maximize the results of the chosen low-emission interventions. So what do I mean by an integrated approach? Well, very often local governments pursue low-emission development using a siloed approach to climate mitigation with very little cross-sectoral collaboration. And a hazard of this is that these divided responsibilities can result in poorly coordinated investments, increased costs, and underutilized infrastructures and facilities. So what's more challenging to do, and what makes the Solutions Gateway unique, is that it brings together different disciplines in an integrated way to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of the intervention, to accelerate services and increase service quality for low-emission urban development. So within the Solutions Gateway, a solution is an integrated process that takes into account all of the different roles and mandates that a local government can play in order to deliver urban low-emission development within its jurisdiction. So the Solutions Gateway covers main sectors that typically fall under local government's mandates or are influenced by local government, from energy and buildings to local government operations, and cross-sectoral themes such as sustainable public procurement. And the Solutions Gateway can support you in building local government capacity through different processes involved at all stages of development. So from strategy setting, creating the necessary enabling conditions and institutional capacity, to the identification of potential projects, creating synergies, helping to replicate and upscale, and finding the appropriate finance models and instruments which work best for you. And ultimately, to project implementation, monitoring, and evaluation to demonstrate and give visibility to your results. And a unique feature of the Solutions Gateway is the pool of experts. So the pool of experts is a growing global multidisciplinary network of professionals which provide guidance on low-emission development to local governments. So if you need to seek one-on-one tailored support, it's only a click away, which I'll show you momentarily. Also coming soon is our finance decision support tool. So this is a unique feature which is going to allow you to explore the appropriate finance instruments which best suit your needs. And without further ado, I will just take you to the Solutions Gateway. Voila. Here we go. So this is the home page of the Solutions Gateway. That's www.solutions-gateway.org. As you can see here, you've got your solutions, which are processes which local governments can implement to enhance low emissions development in their communities. Solution packages, which are groups of solutions under a given theme, which are clustered to generate synergies, optimize impacts, and case studies. And here's the login, but I just want to show you without logging in, you can already click on these solutions, which are all publicly available to you. Peruse either sort by theme or search. There we go. Let's check out residential buildings of a solution for solar hot water at community scale. You'll see here you've got your motivation and relevance, the main impacts, and then you have a wide range of resources which are available to you upon logging in. So I encourage you to register today. I'll show you what happens once you do. Oops. There we go. All right, so then you can really dive deeper, looking at the enabler actions, required actions, multiplier actions to accelerate energy efficiency in the built environment, from reality checks to key barriers, risks, enabler actions. Ooh, I don't want to miss the workflow. Workflow is great. Look at that. Then, of course, we've got benefits for vertical integration, which doesn't seem to be working because, well, maybe in a second. And resources. And so if you click on resources, you'll actually see a very substantial list of case studies and tools. Sorry, let me just try reloading this. Here we go. So we invite you to contribute your case studies and resources. You can share materials here. You can also report your results because we want this to be, we invite you to contribute your data. You can rate these solutions because we want this to, in the Solutions Gateway. Print solutions. You can connect as through our pool of experts on LinkedIn, which leads you here. And I would also like to say, as part of your involvement in the Building Efficiency Accelerator, your government has access to both the pool of experts as well as free on-request policy technical assistance offered by the Clean Energy Ministerial Clean Energy Solutions Center. So ICLEI has partnered with CESC through the Ask an Expert service, which also helps governments design and adopt policies and programs and identify finance measures that support the deployment of clean energy technologies, also for free. So you can either visit this website here at www.cleanenergysolutions.org/expert, or you can connect through our pool of experts, and we can start this dialogue and offer you the technical assistance and support you need. So I encourage you to register today for more, and to help build the Solutions Gateways. As a thematic expert, as a city, we want to hear from you. We want to know your good practices, and we want to share and celebrate them. And we also, of course, invite you to use the system, both as a member of, as a technical staff or a politician. And so what's in it for you as a city official? If you're a city official, the Solutions Gateway allows you to get the big picture. It also gives you access to experts, which is just a mouse click away, to profile your city's best practices and to profile your staff's expertise. And as a technical expert, if you register for the Solutions Gateway, you'll benefit from deep dive solution subsections, including detailed technical actions, suggested indicators. You can assess greenhouse gas mitigation potential along with other tools and resources, which will benefit you. And last but not least, we warmly welcome all of you to share and contribute your expertise as authors, reviewers, or partners. So we're very happy to give your expertise the visibility and recognition you deserve. And we want to pool all of these wonderful resources to support local governments to further urban low-emission development strategies, plans, and policies. So do get in touch. If so, you'll be joining over 186 experts contributing to our 82 city case studies, as well as our existing solutions and solutions packages. And I would like to add that we are in the process of working on a solution package for energy efficient building. So stay tuned and watch this space for the finance decision-making support tool. If you don't have access to internet, you can also view the Solutions Gateway sourcebook. Here's the URL. This is an offline version which you can print. It's abridged, and it's a wonderful resource which we just published last month. And keep an eye out for the new solutions and solutions packages coming your way soon. So start exploring today, and thanks very much for your attention. And on to you, Francis.
Hi everybody, this is Zoe Spriggins and Francis Downey from C40. Can you hear us? Okay. So what we're going to do today is mainly give an introduction to the C40 Good Practice Guides. I'm Zoe, I'm head of the Energy Initiative here, and I'm joined by Frankie, who's Network Manager for Private Building Efficiency. And just to start with, we'll give a brief background to C40's work on building energy efficiency. Then Frankie will talk about private buildings, by which we mean commercial and residential, and then I will talk through municipal building efficiency. So just to start with, for those of you not familiar with C40, we are a group of 83 of the world's largest cities, and our cities focus specifically on climate change. And we work with them in various ways, the main one being connecting different city officials to their peers around the world to help them deliver solutions to climate challenges in their own city. So it's very much about city officials working with one another and offering up their expertise to each other. We also really believe in cities inspiring one another and even inspiring upwards to nation states, so we work a lot on showcasing what they're doing. And we also believe in influencing the national and international policy agenda by bringing together the collective voice of cities. And the aim of all of this is to be able to advance the most ambitious action in our cities. And the way that cities become members of C40 is their mayors being accepted to join C40 and signing up to standards which are mainly focused on committing to share and support their peer cities. And we really believe that collaboration is the best way of doing this. We know that 80% of our city membership collaboration happens through us, and 30% of the climate action they do is attributed to collaborating with other cities. And actually it's energy efficiency in buildings, which is the area where cities most work with each other. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And of our 83 cities, nearly half of them are focused on building energy efficiency. And I think the point's been made clearly already by the other presentations, but for cities in particular, energy efficiency in buildings is really critical. It's around 2/3 of our city members' emissions, and this comes from new buildings, which means that we are keen to help cities get the most efficient buildings as they're being built now, but we also know that retrofitting is really important. And this graph below shows how retrofits, new builds, and also the appliances in city buildings are really critical. So I'm going to hand over to Frankie, and just as background on our good practice guides, as I mentioned, the main way that our cities work together is directly, it's privately, and the resources are only available to member cities in C40. And part of the reason we do that is because it means that cities can be very open about their challenges and solutions together. However, we're really keen that some of the best practices they have are shared more widely. And as a result, we've commissioned 2 pieces of research, one on private buildings, one on municipal buildings, which aim to bring together the best practices of those cities so that they can be shared publicly. And the documents we're about to talk through are available on our public web pages, and we can share those links. And we want to share some of the highlights of the findings that we found about what really works in cities. So I'm going to hand over to Frankie to talk through what works in the private buildings network. And we find there are quite a lot of similarities between what works on private buildings and what works in municipal buildings. So in the second part of the presentation, I'll pick up from Frankie and just fill in the gaps about where slightly different approaches are needed for municipal buildings. So Frankie, over to you.
Thanks very much, Zoe. So yeah, as I said, we'll talk to you about the private building efficiency network. So the network has well over 20 members with particularly high membership in North America and in Southeast Asia and Oceania. It's one of the longest running and largest networks in C40. And we have 2 cities, both Sydney and Tokyo, are co-leads of the network. So energy consumed in buildings accounts for almost half of C40 cities' carbon emissions on average. And it's about 2/3 of this that comes from private buildings. As Zoe mentioned, when we talk about private buildings, the cities are primarily focused on residential buildings, so single and multifamily buildings, and commercial buildings, so office, retail, hotel buildings. And primarily the focus is on existing buildings as they're seen as a tougher nut to crack. City powers over privately owned buildings, obviously given their nature, it is quite limited, but it does range from cities such as Tokyo and Shenzhen in China, who have established cap and trade programs, to other cities that have to be a little bit more innovative with voluntary schemes in order to make progress on energy efficiency. So, look, the cities in the network, as I said, the main way that they collaborate is around calls, webinars, face-to-face workshops, so that they can learn from one another, share ideas. And when it comes to building policies, it really can be difficult to know where to start. So in collaboration with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, who generously sponsored this research, we developed the Urban Efficiency Guide. This guide is a survey of the building energy efficiency policies in 16 of the C40 cities, and I'm going to talk through some of the key findings from that report. It's also been such a useful report and so helpful so far that actually a second version is under development at the moment to expand the number of case studies and the policy map that you'll see shortly. So some of the dominant policy trends that came out from the report. Reporting and benchmarking. So in essence, reporting and benchmarking requires owners to report their building energy data, and this is often disclosed to prospective buyers or tenants, and more frequently is being published online as well. Very popular in the US cities, Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, Seattle have them, as well as some other cities, including Singapore. And a lot of them have started using data in their communications back to stakeholders, so sending them reports showing how they can improve compared to their neighbours. Both Philadelphia and Seattle do that. Green building and energy ratings popular, although the rating systems themselves tend to be run by non-city bodies. Cities are quite keen to utilise them, and some of them have adapted them to their local conditions. Financial incentives is always popular, can take quite a few forms. For example, free kit, such as in the Retrofit Chicago residential program, there's free thermostats and shower heads. Could be in the form of tax incentives, for example, ones that Tokyo offer to their small and medium-sized businesses. And several other cities have developed quite sophisticated financial instruments to support investment in energy efficiency, such as the Environmental Upgrade Finance Program in Melbourne and Sydney. Promoting green leases, again popular with cities, particularly in the US, in Australia, again Singapore do it as well. So it's promoting contracts between tenants and landlords, often commercial buildings, which require commitment to energy efficiency from both sides. I'm now going to have a look at some of the trends that are growing and would have the potential to be duplicated globally. So the first one is building energy codes. At the moment, building codes obviously exist and often have an energy component, but they're most often set by the national governments or the state governments. However, we're seeing more cities that are setting their own more stringent versions, particularly where cities want to move faster than the national government on climate change. For example, Houston have codes that go 15% beyond what the Texas state code allows. There are also cases like in Singapore and New York where building energy codes are being applied to existing buildings, not just to new build. Mandatory auditing and retro-commissioning. And just to note here, when I talk about retro-commissioning, I'm referring to where equipment or building systems are tested and adjusted to ensure that they're functioning in an energy efficient manner, whereas auditing refers to the inspection or measuring of an overall energy performance in a building to identify opportunities to increase energy efficiency. This has emerged as a upcoming trend in buildings, that makes it sound quite trendy, where so it's requiring buildings to be assessed regularly so that equipment is brought back to its original performance. For example, Hong Kong require 4 kind of key elements of buildings to be audited every 10 years. Seattle are bringing in retro-commissioning in 2018 for the buildings, for large buildings, energy and water systems. Retro-commissioning is also in New York. You'll hear me mention New York quite a few times. They're doing quite a lot. Voluntary leadership for those cities that don't have the powers to bring in things like auditing or retro-commissioning. Many cities have created voluntary programs which recognize the private sector for stepping up to address energy efficiency voluntarily. This photo is of the old mayor of London as of a few weeks at the Business Energy Challenge Award that C40 helped to set up. Other examples include Melbourne's 1,200 Buildings program, which is a voluntary challenge program. And finally, interactive awareness raising. So awareness raising is undertaken by several cities themselves, independent of national schemes, and a lot of these are going beyond just the information sharing. The example here is from Singapore. The Greenovate Challenge is a friendly competition amongst secondary schools where ESCOs provide free audits, and then students work with the ESCO, the energy service company, to produce a plan of action. So all of these policies that I've mentioned are summarized in the report in this very handy policy map, which is a handy guide to quickly identify which cities have which policies in place. So I'm going to quickly talk through some of the common challenges that came up. First of all, data management. I think it was mentioned before by Nate, a lot of the cities are collecting more and more data on their buildings, but there are challenges with this, particularly errors occurring as a result of self-reporting or technical flaws. So many cities are looking to use automated reporting platforms. In the US, they have the Energy Star Portfolio Manager, but other platforms exist in other cities where they've got benchmarking. A lot of cities are also looking and developing data cleaning methods to identify common errors. Often they're working with universities to help them analyze that data to find the best ways to use it. And some cities have also brought in third-party verification. Chicago have, and Tokyo, where it's particularly important because they use that data for their emissions trading scheme. Skills gap, I probably don't have to say to this audience, but city officials are very busy people, often with limited budgets, so it can be difficult to know all there is to know about the area that they're looking to develop policy in. So they often partner with other departments and also other organizations to pool resources and expertise. Another challenge, again, I'm sure you're all familiar with the problem of the split incentive, which occurs in both residential and commercial buildings, where the tenants are less likely to invest in energy savings in a building that they don't own, although it can be the other way around as well. I have heard tenants complaining that they want to do something but the owners don't let them. So, finally, lack of awareness. The implementation of energy efficiency measures is not likely to be prioritized, especially if it's expensive or payback periods are long. Building owners and tenants don't know where to start, and they may not have the time or inclination to carry out a retrofit. So, to counter that, some of the key success criteria that came out of the our report was understanding your building stock. Again, it links back to this data question, and understanding the buildings that exist, typical codes, construction standards, and the energy efficiency measures that could be applied. By doing this, a city is much better able to target their resources towards those buildings that have a much bigger impact on emission reductions. For privately owned buildings in particular, this is important. Given their nature, it can be difficult to access. And this can also range depending on the city, from how developed it is. It can range from audits and surveys up to really detailed building energy level information. For example, the type of information that Singapore is able to collect because they've got benchmarking and audits in place. Setting long-term vision and targets. It allows cities to plan how to reduce emissions, and it sends a signal to building owners, tenants, and users of their intent, and allows them to build resources to reduce their emissions into their own plans. And likewise, it also sends a signal to the market to encourage the growth of businesses to address this challenge. Several cities have very ambitious targets, such as Vancouver's aim to be the greenest city, I think, in the world by 2050, or Melbourne's aim to be carbon neutral by 2020, which is not far away. Sector-specific strategies of engagement. Privately owned city buildings cover a huge and diverse group of stakeholders and sectors. So policies, programs, and engagement need to be tailored to suit the audience, so the specific challenges and barriers are understood and taken into account. Fourthly, work with partners and stakeholders, not only because cities have limited resources or powers to bring in policies or programs, but also because others working in this space may have, for example, better data or very good existing relationships. Raising awareness and celebrating success, visible and official support from the mayor or officials can provide a key driver in securing partnerships and stimulating a sense of competition amongst different owners or tenants or building or owners. We saw that from the picture with the mayor, the old mayor of London, for the Business Energy Challenge. It's a key driver for businesses signing up to that. And finally, removing barriers to action. This could cover a huge range of things, not only financial, but also technical or project management support. And a good example of this is the New York's Retrofit Accelerator, which provides project management support to building owners who are looking to carry out retrofits and holding their hand kind of every step of the way. So that is a summary of the findings for the private buildings network and our urban efficiency research. So now I'll hand back over to Zoe to cover the municipal buildings.
Great, thanks Frankie. And as I mentioned, in the municipal buildings, I mean, there's a lot of similarities here. So I'll just use the final few minutes to highlight what is in the guide, and it is available on the internet. So I'll then allow you to read through the detail in your own time. So we start with explaining the case about why cities care about municipal buildings, stating the obvious, because they have such a high degree of control, which is in real contrast to the commercial or residential buildings often. It means that if they want to take action, they can do it very quickly, and they can use their own buildings as a test bed for measures and policies that they then have the data and confidence to promote to residential and commercial buildings. And depending on the region, it's surprising what percentage of buildings are actually owned by the city. Even in New York, where around 80% of its emissions come from buildings, almost 8% of those emissions come from municipal buildings. And in a very different country, in China, we see really high level of municipal control, even extending to shopping malls and also hospitals and cinemas. With regards to the cities that have contributed their expertise to the Good Practice Guide, they come from all around the world. Cape Town is the lead city, which reflects the fact that for developing country cities in particular, municipal buildings is often the best starting place for taking action. And we do work very closely with the network of cities working on private buildings because there's a lot of similarities, particularly around the need for good data. So in the guide, we outline some of the benefits. I'm sure these are really familiar to everybody on this webinar, but often they're the key part for making the case to stakeholders or to politicians about why it's worth taking action. And climate change mitigation is important, but lots of others like economic savings, jobs, social and equity issues around disadvantaged households, also health and well-being, and also the fact that a city that's got good control of its energy consumption is also showing good governance in general. And we encounter the same kind of challenges in the municipal sector, which are set out. I think it's surprising often to people that there are a lot of stakeholders involved, even in controlling municipal buildings. The city doesn't necessarily own all of its buildings, or it's got various and quite diverse groups in those buildings that could range from school children to fire officers to city employees. So that requires quite a lot of different engagement strategies. And the familiar ones around finance, institutional capacity, political support, and awareness. So the way that we structure the conversations and the joint projects of our cities is around the areas that we think will try and sort out some of those challenges. So what we call sustainable finance, sustainable governance, data management, technology development, and behaviour change. Very similar practices in municipal buildings are found to be effective as with private buildings, certainly in the early stages. So it's critical to get baseline energy performance so that cities know how their buildings are consuming energy and where they should be targeting outliers. Then using that data to define an energy efficiency strategy, and within that strategy having ambitious targets. And as I mentioned before, the great thing is that when a city controls its own buildings, it can have a lot more confidence in being able to meet those standards and targets. Where municipal buildings are quite different in terms of the approaches and the controls that cities have are in terms of the interventions they then take. So whereas our cities that are controlling or influencing privately owned buildings might look at legislation or incentive schemes, we find that cities with municipal buildings are more focused on the practicalities of getting good energy performance contracts, choosing the right technologies, and also providing the right advice to various city agencies and employees about energy efficiency to ultimately get that behavioural change. And within the guide, we have examples for all the approaches that I just mentioned. A couple I wanted to mention here is Stockholm. It's a particularly impressive energy centre where they provide expert support to lots of city agencies. And also in London, they took a similar approach where they recognised that providing internal in-house consultancy to help various city buildings get energy performance contracts was what was really needed. We have around 15, 20 case studies in the guide, so I really encourage you to have a read through it. I think our time is up, so I'm going to hand over to the next speaker.
Thank you. This is great. This is Omid speaking. I'm green building specialist working with IFC as part of World Bank Group. We are working on Edge Green Building Certification System. This is, in a sense, complementary to what you have seen on Solutions Gateway or C40 cities. I explain the differences here and go through the process quickly, given the time limit that I have. Basically, World Bank Group and IFC, what we are trying to do here is to create an ecosystem for green buildings and developing the green buildings. And we recognize that in green buildings, as you heard previous speakers were talking about regulations and codes, we are focusing on emerging markets, and emerging markets are slightly different in their approach to green buildings. Therefore, we encourage green government regulations around green buildings. That will set us a baseline for minimum requirements on green. IFC and banking sector is supporting investments in green buildings. That's another element that we are encouraging. We have reached more than $1 billion of investment on green buildings, and we are increasing that. This is only in our IFC accounts. We also support the financial programs, which is really key for development of green buildings. We believe that unless we bring the banking sector into the game will not be finished. We know that technical delivery can be challenged, but without financial support, technical delivery only cannot be enough. Therefore, we are working with banking sector to recognize green buildings. And finally, we are providing a certification system which is very different and, in a sense, trying to complement the existing certification systems and feed into the blanks of certifying green buildings. Existing green building certification systems, if we take the triangle at the top, only targets very high-end buildings or high-end commercial buildings. Our view is that we want to extend the scope to wider market reach, and Edge is trying to basically fill this gap into the marketplace. And we believe that the only way to scale up is we need a quick, simple, and affordable rating system to enable wider reach to the market. The solution that we provide is, has three simple components. The first component is a software. It's an online software which is available on the www.edgebuildings.com. It's a software kit that provides free of charge use for building designers, for developers, for any person that even building operators to review their building operation and always it benchmarks it to a baseline, a country-specific or city-specific baseline. We also defined a universal standard, 20%, and I'll explain what 20% is, but the key is that only buildings can get certification when they are at least 20% better in terms of energy saving, water saving, and material saving from a local baseline. And the local baseline normally can be defined either by current construction practices or the building codes in that country. And finally, a certification system certifies buildings that they achieve this level of standard. And this certification is quite important because it then recognizes the value of that design and construction in place. The software itself, as I mentioned, is available. The key elements on software is that it defines a baseline for each city and each building type, and then it shows the improvements almost on live condition. Whenever you make any changes, you will see the live difference that you can make by those changes. And I encourage the users to use this platform. This is quite straightforward, and if there is any need for help or support, we will be happy to help and support. The standard itself has three main components. We are looking at energy efficiency, water efficiency, and materials embodied energy efficiency. We have selected these three elements specifically because we wanted to focus on resource efficiency as the key element of green buildings. Obviously, the reason here is that we also want this to be connected to the financial behavior of building in terms of savings on bills and the benefits that can directly pass on to the tenants, to building owners, understanding that there's incentives difference between the owner and tenant, but while we can communicate the exact savings that are achieved, that's important and easier to understand when we talk about dollar saving rather than only environmental benefits. And the certificate itself is provided by our partners. We already have 6 partners globally that they provide EDGE certification. They already have auditors in different countries, and those auditors are being trained and pass the exams, and they would be verifying the buildings and providing the certification. The important key element that I want to highlight here is that you can see the savings specific to your building. So there's no rating, for example, you wouldn't have different rating systems, but there's only EDGE certified, but within EDGE certified you can see what is the saving. And even a net zero energy building can be certified by EDGE, and the saving here would be 100% saving. Also, the EDGE certification goes to each home unit and residential unit, enabling homeowners then to use this certificate and go to the bank and get lower interest rate mortgages. And this is one thing that we are developing through the banking sector and enabling banks to understand the benefits of this certificate to pass on incentives to buildings being certified. EDGE covers 5 building types, and we are expanding the building types, but each of those building types has tailored solutions to them. So the saving solutions for homes are different from offices, and each of them are specifically tailored to each building type. We are focusing specifically on emerging markets. For example, C40 is speaking to countries like Australia, Europe, or United States, but our focus through the World Bank is emerging markets. And within the emerging markets in specific countries, for example, in India, in South Africa, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, Costa Rica, we have specific programs to reach 20% of market to be certified within 5 to 7 years. And that is really a key driver for us to ensure that we will be achieving a target that will have a global impact on greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. What I mean by 20% is that, for example, in India, by 2022, for example, we would have 20% of all new buildings constructed in India to be EDGE certified or green certified. With this, we are hoping that after 20%, then the market can get to the tipping point, and after that, the question will not be why I should be certified. The question would be why I should not be certified, certify my building. And that is the place that we want to reach, and markets should drive after that the requirements of green buildings. These are some of the projects that are being certified. The other beauty of this program is that we have done certification of low-income and affordable homes, both in Philippines, in Colombia, in South Africa, and that's really a key component of this program that serves entire spectrum of income levels, from a low-income house all the way to a very high-end office or hotel building. The partners that we're working with, certification partners, these are the names. We have, as I said, these 5 countries, and the local partners, they are committed to reach 20% market penetration in 5 to 7 years. But also we have global certification partners like Thinkstep and SGS and GBCI that they are partnering with us for any other countries outside those 5 countries mentioned above. Our target also is to increase the number of countries that we are looking at as a local partnership model at the top. The main difference between different other programs is that our EDGE looks at as a financial calculator. You can easily see how much it costs for you to do any intervention in the building and what is the payback. And being quantitative is the key element of the EDGE. We really want everything to be number-based and everything to be measured. Those are the 2 key elements under this program. The program offers a one-stop shop, quite easy to access and quite easy to do the process and quick to do the process. We're looking at anything between 10 to 20 days for design certification and 10 to 20 days for construction certification. So the process should be quite fast. And also it is basically integrated in the project. It's location specific, and our goal is green buildings for all, basically. And as I mentioned, we are working with the financial sector, like development banks like FMO, CDC, Copenhagen. They are already recognized EDGE. They're working with local banks in different countries, like Punjab National Bank in India, or their bank in Turkey, or Bank San Jose in Costa Rica. They are also recognizing EDGE. But also we are working with market leaders around funds, hotels, and other designers and builders, that they are joining the crowd to use this platform for green buildings. Here, in 1 minute, I just show you the platform, how it works. It's quite easy to use. For example, this is an office building that I'm looking at it. For example, if I say I want to use external shading in my office building, you can see that the saving will change. The saving went from 18 to 23%. At the same, in a single click, you can see the benefits of each of the elements you are clicking, selecting, and basically also look at the cost of that element and the payback. So these elements that we selected here for energy saving, water saving, and materials would have almost 4 billion Vietnamese dang. This is a project in Vietnam, and it would have 5 years payback. then you can see also the cost benefits, the CO2 savings, and also the water and energy use. Here I stop and I'll pass the presentation back to Christina. If there is any questions, we'll be happy to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omid, for a great presentation. To all speakers who delivered their insights on the tools we heard about today. I'll do a very quick wrap-up, and then we have time for questions. We have been receiving a number of them during the webinar, and participants can pose the questions right now, and you can indicate which speaker you would like to address this question. So today we heard about a building efficiency accelerator from Debbie and how it works with different cities and broad network of partners, which is growing, and any city can express their interest to join the accelerator as well as experts. This webinar is specifically focused on tools for building energy efficiency, and Nate gave us an overview of the work we have been doing on collecting and analyzing various publicly available tools which can be helpful for city policymakers and experts to develop their energy efficiency policies and projects. And we had 3 case studies presented today on specific tools and resources. Lucy guided us through ECLAY Solutions Gateway with its solutions packages and case studies available to broad audience, and presented the opportunities for building capacity at the local level, finance model, visibility of efforts, as well as access to deep expertise in the field of low carbon solutions. Our colleagues from C40, Zoe and Francis, presented our policy trends and challenges and success elements for private buildings as well as municipal buildings, and emphasized a number of key solutions which are very important for energy efficiency, such as setting baselines, developing specific strategies and targets, as well as working with partners and raising awareness. And finally, Amit presented the opportunities of H2 as well as quick, simple and affordable rating system and green building certification system. And we heard about opportunities for financial calculator offered by the tool, as well as energy saving measures and quantitative focus of the tool. So thank you very much to all of you. It was a very fruitful and insightful discussion. And now we are opening the floor to questions from the audience. And we have received a number of them, so I'm for the remaining 15 minutes I'm going to pose the question and ask specific speaker to address it. So I will start with Debbie, and we have a question for her. Could you speak a bit more on how Accelerator or WRI can help cities to access funding for energy efficiency projects? David, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Sonia. So within the Building Efficiency Accelerator, there is not direct funding to support energy efficiency projects, but rather there are a couple of ways that we can help cities access funding. So one is we have a number of working groups focused on different policy and project types. So focusing on codes, focusing on retrofits, etc. And we also have one working group that's focused specifically on financing. And the whole aim of that working group is to bring together experts, technical experts from the 36 global organizations that work in the building efficiency space as Building Efficiency Accelerator partners, to bring together their expertise in providing both resources at a broad level on how to get financing for building efficiency policies and projects, and also to provide more specific info and advice to cities that are part of the Accelerator upon request. So as Lucy mentioned, we also have access through the Clean Energy Solutions Center to the Ask an Expert feature, and also, as she said, through the Solutions Gateway. So there are a network of experts there who can provide expertise and guidance on how to make a project more fundable. And so through all of these different ways, by connecting cities with the global experts and organizations that have that experience and knowledge, we hope to help cities access that funding for projects and policies.
Thank you, Debbie. The next question is for Francis. One of our participants is wondering how receptive you have found private landlords to upgrading energy efficiency of their buildings. How did you manage to convince them to improve energy efficiency if they were not mandating by planning policy?
Hi. Thanks for the question. And I think the answer tends to be good outreach and engagement, really. I'm not sure whether you're talking about commercial or residential, but certainly on the commercial side, for example, Sydney have the Better Buildings Partnership, which brings together a lot of the landlords and owners of buildings in the city, of commercial buildings in the city, and they, by working with them, they've seen huge reductions actually in their emissions. They've report at the end of last year or beginning of this year where they've got 45% reduction in emissions, I think, from 2006 levels, so really great improvements. Also on the commercial side, through green leases, to encourage tenants to work towards making their buildings more energy efficient. Both New York and Singapore have green leases in place. On the residential side, again, really good engagement. Melbourne has a scheme called Smart Blocks where they engage the landlords in strata buildings to improve common areas, so pools or the chillers and the building equipment. Also, then on the residential side, you've got London and San Francisco kind of exploring the concept of encouraging really deep renovation through offering things like kitchen upgrades, so having a new kitchen at the same time as having the rest of your home retrofitted with energy efficiency measures, and using an ESCO energy performance contracting model to do that. So there are lots of ways to do it, but really I think a lot of it comes down to engagement and buy-in, and that's how a lot of the cities have had success in this area.
Thank you, Francis. Well, I have a question to Omid about EDGE tool. How is the baseline set in EDGE? Is a 20% savings a reasonable figure for what cities seek in their 2030 visions? Omid, please.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for Christina for asking this question. The baseline is normally set based on 2 parameters. One is if there is any building energy code that is being used, or green code that's being used in the city, then that becomes the baseline. If there is no such a thing, then the current building practices become the baseline, and the savings then will be measured through from that baseline. And baseline is a moving baseline, so if within every 3 years we revise the baseline, if the city changes the policies, then we will move the baseline to a better place. So the 20% is the minimum improvement from a moving baseline as we go forward. And whether this will help cities to seek their 2030 visions, I think it will, because if the 20% is a minimum requirement, buildings, they can go above and beyond that requirement. And remember that this is a voluntary system that is encouraging the market leaders to move. And for market leaders to move, then we are hoping the others to move toward this. Cities, they can set more stringent targets. For example, a city can say that we require every building to meet 80% saving from a baseline. But that is slightly down the line. Maybe after 2022, we can see the difference in setting that target. But for now, we are starting with slightly easier target to meet to enable the ecosystem and then move forward.
Great, Hamid. Thank you very much. Lucy, we have a question for you. Different cities have different energy efficiency needs. How can the solutions in ECLAY tool be tailored to a particular city's needs?
Thanks. This is a great question. So the Solutions Gateway offers general guidance on proven measures to accelerate energy efficiency. It's a bit like a basic recipe of prerequisites for what you need to take into account when pursuing an integrated low-carbon approach. So of course we recognize that each local government has its own unique context and priorities, and therefore, as Debbie also mentioned, we are here to and happy to offer deeper, tailored support via the pool of experts or ask an expert to connect you to the experts which best suit your needs, as well as to join the Building Efficiency Accelerator, where we will help you to assess your priorities.
Thank you very much, Lucy. The next question is pretty much to all the speakers talking about the tools. While these solutions, meaning the tools, are helpful for cities, do the tools provide perspective to the link to the national targets? Please announce yourself if you want to respond to this question in relation to the tools you were speaking.
So maybe I can explain from EDGE point of view quickly. EDGE provides data for buildings, but so far, for example, World Bank has tools for cities, and what we have done is to transfer the data from EDGE to the cities tools, basically providing the building data to enable the city-level decision making. So this tool is a building level tool, but the data from that can be used at city level and even at national level as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid.
Hi, this is Nate, and I'll just follow up on Hamid's point. Among the more than 40 tools and resources that we detail in our assessment of publicly available tools, many are, as Hamid mentioned, city scale, but we also have global and national scale data. And the idea is that cities are often the laboratories for experimentation, and they also have the ability to do short-term projects and to respond to these opportunities more quickly than national governments, but that it often percolates up for the successful policies and case studies and tools to the national level. So we can certainly provide more information for attendees who are interested in the different levels of information there.
Great.
I'm happy to also chime in here. This is Lucy speaking for ECLAY. So I'm happy to report that every single solution in the Solutions Gateway has its own section, once you log in, dedicated to vertical integration and the benefits of linking up to your regional and national levels of government via whatever solution you pursue. We also couple this with our Carbon Climate Registry. So this is the leading voluntary global reporting platform where local governments can report their commitments, especially energy efficiency commitments when we're talking about the building sector, as well as commitments to reduce greenhouse gases, and report adaptation commitments for that matter, and track their GHG performance as well as report their actions. And local governments are invited to do this via the GPC, so the Global Protocol for Community Scale Greenhouse Gas Emission Inventories. And this accounts for all 7 gases listed in the Kyoto Protocol. This protocol is really designed for vertical integration to help you measure and manage and report in order to show your leadership and link up to your different levels of government. And last but not least, ICLE provides advocacy on behalf of all of our local governments as the LGMA focal point, as I mentioned earlier. However, I would like to also flag that the BEA has been advocating for vertical integration with the early onset of its involvement in the organization of the subnational leadership panel at the Lima Paris Action Agenda, the COP21. So we were already shining a light on local governments, inviting regional and national governments to come and start this dialogue in how to advance energy efficient building in the built urban environment.
Hi, this is Frankie from C40. So C40 is obviously a network for city-to-city interaction, but they very much need to be aware of and take account of state and national government legislation. And in the guides are examples of how some of the cities are already doing that. For example, cities that don't have powers themselves are able to use national building codes or national building standards, and for example might require new development on city-owned land to meet certain standards or codes that already exist at the national level to meet that as one example. So some of that is already in the guides.
Thank you all very much. One more question to Zoe and Francis on C40 tool. To what extent have private entities, ESCOs, been the driving factor for investments of energy efficiency measures in municipal-owned buildings?
Thanks. Yeah, so I would say that the driving factor in municipal-owned buildings is when the city has set itself a target or ambition, because I mean, as we know at the moment, the economics and the market are not the easiest or the most incentivizing environment for energy efficiency. So when a city has said, here's what we want to do, that then creates the space for the private sector to step in. And then I would say that cities which have active, professional energy performance companies, that's been really, really important. In some places, like in the US, there's been special training given to city officials so that they can manage good energy performance contracts. In other places like London and Paris, they have used European Union funding to build up that expertise. Because, to be honest, if you don't have officials who have the financial and technical expertise to manage the contract, then it's quite an imbalanced relationship. So you need a city to have a target, a city to have internal expertise to manage energy performance contracts, and you need good energy performance companies to provide that. And then that's where we see the biggest energy savings.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time, but there is one more very quick question maybe for all the participants, for all the speakers about the case studies of the tools. Do all organizations or anyone presenting in this webinar support energy efficiency measures in small island states such as islands in the Caribbean? Please give a short answer.
Okay, let me forward.
Sorry, Omid, go ahead.
Thanks. Very quickly, on EDGE, Yes, if you review the Edge tool and you see that your country or city is not listed and it's a developing country, then please reach out to us and we add. It will take us probably 3 to 4 weeks to add new cities to Edge, and we will be happy to do that. Francis, go ahead.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, because we focus on megacities, our tools, our case studies are open to anyone, but they're drawn from pretty large metropolises.
Lucy here. So at the ICLE Oceania Secretariat, my colleague Steve Goller, the regional director of the office, actually just launched a new program targeting small island states. And please do get in touch and I'll be happy to continue this discussion bilaterally. But that's definitely an aim of ours, to produce more case studies on this.
And
Great.
Sorry,
Yes,
this is Debbie, and just from the Building Efficiency Accelerator, we are open to participation for any subnational jurisdiction. So if you're interested, please do let us know.
Thank you very much for answering questions for participants and for participants asking these very great questions. We did get a question about availability of the recordings and the presentations, and I would like to emphasize that they all will be available shortly after this webinar on Z2E2 Knowledge Management System at kms.energyefficiencycenter.org. And we will send the link to all registered participants so that they can access it afterwards. With this, thank you all very much for joining this fruitful discussion on the tools for building energy efficiency. And please do check Building Efficiency Accelerator website and webinars. There is a lot of materials on different areas on energy efficiency. And we will be happy to inform you of any upcoming webinars and events. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks all.